30 Saronic Corsairs, $30 to $40 million, one dead destroyer. Today, the math gets worse. One sleeper, 90 days. One Type 055, let's dive. They don't chase, they wait. Sleepers, 90 days on the seabed, until their prey arrives.
$30 Saronic Corsairs, $30 million, one dead Arleigh Burke destroyer. That was the math from our last video. Today, the math gets worse for the other side because the target is no longer a $2 billion destroyer. It is a $2.5 billion Type 055 cruiser, the pride of the PLN surface fleet, and the number that kills it is not 30 drones. It is one sleeper sitting on the seabed for 90 days, waiting for the acoustic signature that tells it exactly when to wake up. This video is the direct sequel to our previous episode on USV data networks and LUSV motherships. Last time we covered the surface layer and the data links that keep a strike network alive under A2AD conditions. Today we go beneath the surface into the layer that the Type 055 was never designed to fight. The previous video established that data links are not constant pipelines but supervision channels for updates, retasking, and aborts. We explained that USV must carry their entire mission package on board and that layered communications architecture is essential to beat Earth curvature. Today we apply those same principles to the underwater domain, where acoustic whispers replace satellite links and patience replaces speed. Let us be fair to the Type 055 first, because it deserves a proper assessment before we expose its vulnerability. 112 vertical launch cells make it one of the most heavily armed surface combatants currently operating anywhere on Earth. Confirmed by USNI proceedings and multiple open-source intelligence reports, a large share of that magazine is committed to the HQ-9B, a long-range surface-to-air missile with a confirmed range exceeding 100 nautical miles, or over 185 kilometers. Against a saturation air attack, this ship is an absolute nightmare that would challenge any adversary's strike package. Underwater, however, the picture changes dramatically and in ways that naval planners have only recently begun to address in earnest. Type 055 torpedo defense, based on everything visible in open source reporting and confirmed by multiple independent analyses, is soft kill only. The ship carries hull-mounted and variable depth sonar, a towed array to listen for incoming threats, and towed torpedo decoys designed to lure attacking torpedoes off course through acoustic deception. No publicly available source from either Chinese or Western intelligence confirms the existence of a hard-kill anti-torpedo system on this class of vessel. Compare that to the wall of interceptors this ship can put in the sky, and the imbalance becomes obvious and deeply problematic for the survivability of the platform. A destroyer this densely packed with anti-air missiles has built its entire threat model around the sky, not around what lurks beneath the waves. The seabed, it turns out, was somebody else's problem, and that gap is the entire premise of this video. The Type 055 sonar suite is capable and sophisticated by any reasonable standard. But sonar on a surface ship has inherent physical limitations that cannot be engineered away. There is no sensor array on any surface combatant that can see directly beneath its own hull with perfect clarity, and thermocline layers can further obscure what lies below. That blind zone, combined with the absence of confirmed hard-kill defenses, creates an exploitable vulnerability that the Orca and its payload are specifically designed to target. This is not about defeating the Type 055 in a fair fight on its own terms. This is about denying it the fight entirely by attacking from the one direction its designers could not fully protect. To understand the weapon that exploits this vulnerability, you have to go back to a Cold War idea that most people have never heard of, but which fundamentally shaped underwater warfare doctrine for decades. The Mark 60 CAPTOR, whose name stands for encapsulated torpedo, remains the United States' only purpose-built deep-water anti-submarine mine ever produced in significant numbers. The concept was almost sociopathic in its elegant simplicity and ruthless efficiency. Take a Mark 46 lightweight torpedo, seal it inside an aluminum shell, and anchor that shell to the ocean floor where it can sit undetected for weeks on end without any external power or communication. It could be laid by aircraft, by submarine, or by a surface vessel, and once it's settled on station at a predetermined depth, it simply listened to the acoustic environment around it. Goodyear Aerospace won the production contract for this system in 1972, and the CAPTOR officially entered service with the United States Navy in 1979. Inside that aluminum shell was a passive acoustic processor doing 3 jobs continuously without any human intervention whatsoever. It listened for acoustic signatures, classified them against its programmed threat library, and decided whether the detected contact matched the type of submarine it was hunting. When a hostile submarine signature aligned with what the mine was programmed to engage, the shell released the torpedo and the Mark 46 did the rest of the work. No operator was required, no data link was active, and no warning was given to the target before the torpedo was already in the water and homing. It sat in the dark for weeks and waited with infinite patience, relying entirely on its own onboard processing to make the kill decision. CAPTOR was eventually retired from service around 2001, but the operational concept did not die with the platform. Instead, it evolved and became the grandfather of everything we are about to describe in this video. The idea of a pre-positioned, autonomous underwater killer that requires no human intervention after deployment has proven too valuable to abandon. It simply needed better sensors, better processing, and better delivery platforms to reach its full potential in the modern battle space. Meet the Boeing Orca, the most dangerous unmanned underwater vehicle the United States Navy has ever put into operational testing and acceptance. 26 meters long, or approximately 85 feet, with a 34-foot modular payload bay that defines its mission flexibility, displacing approximately 50 tons empty and 85 tons when fully configured with its mission payload. The Orca is an extra-large unmanned undersea vehicle designed for endurance over speed. It can carry up to 8 tons of payload in that modular bay, including the full spectrum of mine warfare systems and sensor packages. Top speed is roughly 8 knots or 15 kilometers per hour, but the practical cruising speed for most of its mission profile is closer to 3 knots, approximately 5.5 kilometers per hour. Range is approximately 6,500 nautical miles, which translates to over 12,000 kilometers by Boeing published specifications. Endurance is measured in months, not days, making the Orca one of the longest duration unmanned platforms ever fielded by any navy in the world. Read those numbers again and notice what is conspicuously missing from the equation. Speed is not the priority, and this is the point that people consistently get wrong about the Orca concept of operations. It was never designed to chase anything, never intended to maneuver aggressively against a mobile target. It was designed to preposition, to infiltrate and wait to become part of the environment rather than an active hunter. The practical significance of this design philosophy is that the Orca can place mines and establish persistent presence without ever committing a Virginia-class attack submarine to the operation. A Virginia-class submarine is a billion-dollar nuclear-powered crude asset that represents a significant risk if it must operate inside a defended maritime area. The Orca offers the same strategic effect without risking a single American life or a scarce submarine asset. Communicating with something that moves this slowly and operates this quietly presents its own unique challenges that must be solved through layered architecture. Orca has to come to periscope depth to communicate over satellite links, which exposes it briefly to detection by enemy surface search radars. Underwater, it depends on acoustic modems that are short-ranged and painfully slow by modern data standards, transmitting only a few hundred bits per second. This is where the LUSV from our previous video becomes absolutely essential to the kill chain architecture. The LUSV sits on the surface, uses its radar to detect a 055 at the edge of the horizon, roughly 40 kilometers out, and then whispers that contact data down to the Orca over the acoustic link. The surface layer and the underwater layer are not separate stories operating in isolation from one another. They are one coordinated kill chain where each platform compensates for the other limitations. If CAPTOR was the grandfather of this family of weapons, then 3 modern systems deserve the title of its children, and the Orca is the delivery mechanism that brings them all into the battle space. The first and most significant of these is Hammerhead, designated Mark 71, which represents a direct throwback to the CAPTOR concept rebuilt for the 21st century operational environment. It is a deep water, anti-submarine mine that can detect, classify, localize, and engage a hostile submarine with a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo, all without human intervention after deployment. Unlike other mines in this family that can be delivered by multiple platforms, Hammerhead is purpose-built around a single delivery platform that defines its operational flexibility and clandestine nature. That platform is the Orca XLUUV, which can carry multiple Hammerhead units in its payload bay and seed them across a choke point without ever being detected. The mine is moored to the Seabed, encapsulated against pressure and acoustic detection, and loaded with modern sensors and a high-density energy module that can sustain it for months. Hammerhead is designed to sit on the seabed for weeks or months while maintaining an acoustic communications link back to its controlling authority for potential updates or retasking. When it detects a target that matches its programmed engagement criteria, it can release its Mark 54 torpedo autonomously without requiring any further command from human operators. This represents a significant evolution from CAPTOR in terms of onboard processing power, sensor sensitivity, and energy efficiency, making it far more capable against modern quiet submarines and surface ships. The second system is the clandestine delivered mine, commonly referred to as CDM and officially designated as the Mark 68 in Navy nomenclature. The Navy is repurposing surplus Mark 67 submarine-launched mobile mine warheads into this new weapon, which is designed specifically for shallow water bottom influence operations. It has been tested from both the Snakehead LD UUV and the Orca XLUUV, establishing it as a versatile addition to the underwater mine warfare portfolio. CDM is a smart bottom mine with acoustic command and control layered on top of its existing capabilities for remote management. This means it can receive remote commands to activate, deactivate, or retarget after deployment, providing operational flexibility that legacy mines could never offer. The third system is Quickstrike ER, which takes a standard JDAM guidance kit and bolts it onto a mine body to create a glide mine. Quickstrike ER can be launched from altitudes of 35,000 feet and reach targets over 40 nautical miles away, all while delivering a 2,000-pound bomb body with mine-specific sensors. It represents the air-delivered branch of the same family tree, ensuring that the United States can mine defended maritime areas without overflying them directly and risking aircraft. 3 weapons, 1 doctrine that unifies them all under a single operational concept. Do not chase the target. Let the target sail into the minefield that was prepared weeks ago by an asset it never detected. This is the essence of asymmetric underwater warfare in the 21st century, where patience and stealth replace speed and firepower. Before this video descends into fantasy, we need to explicitly kill the Hollywood version of this story that some viewers might have constructed in their minds. You do not send 3 Orcas to ambush a task force at jam bearings 26 and 10 like a submarine movie where everything happens at high speed and close range. At 3 knots or 5.5 kilometers per hour, coordinating multiple XL'd UUV into a synchronized multi-axis attack is not a real tactic. It is a scriptwriter shortcut, and it reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of how unmanned underwater platforms actually operate in contested environments. The real doctrine is patience, not choreography, and it relies on the inherent advantages of pre-positioning over active maneuvering. A single Orca is pre-positioned at a choke point, whether the Taiwan Strait, the Luzon Strait, or any other geographic funnel that a Type 055 battle group must transit. It goes quiet, settles onto the seabed, and functions less like a submarine and more like a mobile minefield that was never supposed to be there. If the mission calls for multi-axis coverage, that is achieved by seeding multiple Hammerhead mines across the sea bed from that single platform, not by fielding a squadron of Orcas racing each other underwater. The LUSV feeds targeting cues in from the surface. Using its radar horizon detection, the Orca stays dark and silent, and the mines do the waiting. The kill chain proceeds through clear, discrete stages that are individually difficult to detect and disrupt with current countermeasures. First, the LUSV detects the Type L55 at the radar horizon, which is roughly 40 kilometers for a sea-skimming target at typical antenna heights based on the physics of Earth curvature. Second, the LUSV relays a targeting whisper to the Orca over the acoustic modem, providing sufficient data for the Orca to wake its Hammerhead mines. Third, the Hammerhead mines perform their own acoustic classification and tracking to confirm the target identity and course before committing. Fourth, when the Type 055 enters the optimal engagement zone, the Hammerhead releases its Mark 54 torpedo. The torpedo homes on the target from below, exploiting the Type 055 soft kill-only torpedo defense and the inherent limitations of surface ship sonar against threats approaching directly from beneath. Slow is not a weakness in this doctrine. Slow is the doctrine that makes the entire kill chain possible and survivable against a heavily defended surface combatant. Now, the smart comment in this video will be that China will not send Type 055 first into a contested choke point. They will send Type 056 corvettes and mine countermeasure USV to sweep the lane before risking the expensive asset. You are right, and that is exactly what PLAN doctrine prescribes for any high-value, non-expendable unit like the Type 055. They will never risk a $2.5 billion cruiser to clear a minefield when cheaper assets can do the job. But here is why that screening doctrine fails against Hammerhead, and this is where the asymmetry becomes truly brutal for the PLAN. First, the wrong ships are being sent for the wrong mission. Type 056A is an ASW corvette designed for hunting submarines with hull-mounted sonar and towed arrays, not for mine countermeasures. China real minesweepers are the Type 0A1 Awachi and Type 0A22 Wazan-class vessels, small fiberglass or wooden hold ships that are slow, and there are only a dozen of them. They are designed for shallow ports, not deep water choke points at 800 meters where Hammerhead sleeps. Second, you cannot sweep a smart mine with traditional methods. Old mines were swept with a wire or a magnetic field that caused them to detonate harmlessly. Hammerhead is an influence mine with onboard processing that includes ship counting logic inherited directly from CAPTOR. It can let 3 Type 056 corvettes pass, ignore a Chinese MCM USV with a weird acoustic signature, and detonate only on the 4th contact that matches a Type 055 over 180 decibels. It chooses to ignore the small ships and wait for the jackpot. Third, the time equation makes screening prohibitively expensive for the PLAN. To hunt 8 Hammerhead mines the size of a refrigerator, sitting silent with zero emissions at 800 meters depth across 350 kilometers of the Luzon Strait, a Chinese MCM task force needs weeks with side-scan sonar and ROV. Orca needs 2 hours to reseed the field after the mines are cleared, and the Orca has been crawling for 2 months at 3 knots to get there. The cost exchange is still obscene. China spends tens of millions per day to clear a lane. The United States spends $1 million per mine to close it again. Screening with small ships is the correct doctrine on paper. It is just too slow, too expensive, and too ineffective against a sleeper that can decide not to kill small ships and wait for the asset that actually matters. The Chinese answer is correct in theory, but fails in practice against Hammerhead capabilities. So here is where we land, and it is not a comfortable landing for advocates of traditional capital ship construction or for the PLAN surface fleet planners. A Type 055 is a magnificent answer to an air threat that took the West decades to develop countermeasures against. It has almost nothing prepared for a machine that costs a fraction of its price, moves slower than a jogger, and does not need to move at all to achieve its objective. The Orca does not outfight the Type 055 in any conventional sense of naval combat doctrine. It simply waits for the Type 055 to walk into a choke point that was mined weeks earlier by something nobody detected entering the area. And when China sends its Type 056 corvettes and USV to screen and sweep, the Hammerhead simply counts them, ignores them, and waits for the $70 million destroyer to pass so it can kill the $2.5 billion cruiser instead. Now here is the uncomfortable reality of the Orca program itself as of mid-2026. The Navy has formally transitioned Orca from experimental prototype to planned fleet acquisition, with a total investment of $1.13 billion to acquire 16 units through fiscal year 2031. The FY2027 budget alone allocates $135.8 million to continue manufacturing 2 more units, confirming that this is not a science experiment, but a major strategic commitment. But the program is also a mess. A Government Accountability Office report released in July 2026 reveals that the prototype program has experienced roughly 5 years of cumulative delays, primarily due to material sourcing and pressure vessel construction problems. Cost overruns have reached 64%, making the program at least $242 million over budget. And the delivery of the final 4 prototypes has been pushed back to January 2027. This is where the Pentagon response gets interesting and reveals the true strategic importance of the XLUUV concept. A February 2026 spending plan formally confirms a shift away from relying solely on large, monolithic programs like the Orca. The Navy is now diversifying by accelerating production of small USV and partnering with the Defense Innovation Unit and Anduril Industries through the Combat Autonomous Maritime Platform project to develop cheaper, faster alternatives. That shift does not mean the Orca concept failed. It means the threat is so real and the requirement so urgent that the Pentagon is willing to pursue it down multiple expensive paths simultaneously. They are spending over $1 billion on Orca while simultaneously funding competitors to do the same job cheaper and faster. That is not a sign of abandonment. That is a sign of desperation to field this capability as quickly as possible. So the question remains, and it cuts both ways for every Navy on Earth. Should we still build $2.5 billion destroyers when a $1 million mine can sleep on the seabed for 90 days, count to 4, and still win? The Orca program is troubled, delayed, and over budget, yet the Navy is still spending over $1 billion on it while scrambling to find even more alternatives. The age of the capital ship is not ending because of a single perfect weapon. It is ending because the seabed has become the most dangerous place on Earth for any surface combatant, and every major navy now knows it. This is not a prediction about the future of naval warfare. This is a description of its present reality, and the Orca XLUUV is the platform that made that reality unavoidable.